welcome everyone, those who are attending, those who are listening to the recording. Welcome to our initial webinar for 2024, 5 engagement strategies you must adopt in 2024 to maximise retention. Our webinars are intended to be informative based on our own experience of working with our clients, our research, but also the feedback that we've been receiving about the state of the market and how people are adapting to the changes, particularly in relation to retention and turnover. So I'm joined today with Lauren. We'll do our introductions in a moment, and in the background we have Bettina as well. So it's a 30-minute presentation, and then we'll allow 15 minutes for questions following that. And we hope you enjoy it, and we'll get underway. So our objectives today are to, first of all, understand what are some of the retention challenges that we're observing this year in particular, but also following on from last year. Let's talk about what we think are the 5 top engagement strategies that you can initiate, but we want you to use this as a checklist so that you can perhaps identify what you're already doing, and maybe there's some ideas in here that you can use this year as well. Talk about how to plan for change, don't just hope for it. And then what you can do now, and then we'll finish up with a QA session at 12:30. So as an introduction to us, we are Howardco, as that slide says, and our purpose is to help visionary leaders build great businesses. We're a full-service HR consultancy, and we have a business focus. And our mission is to link people and strategy at every stage of the growth cycle through recruiting and onboarding, people management and culture, and leadership and team development. They are what we call our 3 keystone services. And our vision is quite simply to create workplaces where people and businesses thrive. So we're using these webinars as an opportunity to create and add value for our existing clients, but also to showcase those people who may not be working with us at the moment, to showcase some of the work we are doing and the information that we're sharing to help you in your organisations as well. So our speakers today, myself, Warren Howard, the Director of Howardco Business and HR Solutions, Executive and Leadership Coach, and as the slide says, nurturing cultures and building success. And I'm very, very keen to welcome Lauren Ayers. Hi, Lauren.
Hello, good to be here.
Great to have you, Lauren. Lauren's our Senior HR and Recruitment Consultant, building futures by nurturing leaders. Lauren and I work together a lot, and I'm very excited to have her on board today because she, like I, are working at the coalface every day. Looking forward to sharing with you some of the learnings that we are taking from the work we're currently doing. So thanks, Lauren, for joining us.
Yeah, absolutely.
And Bettina in the background. Thank you. Bettina's pushing the buttons for us today. Thank you, Bettina. So people retention. Why did we choose this topic, especially as our first one for the year? Well, just quite frankly, attracting and retaining good people in any business at the moment is still just as important as it was last year. There are a lot of factors driving that, and I'll talk about what they are in a moment. But it is a hot topic on many agendas and conversations that I've been having with you and with our clients. This is still at the top of, or if not the top, near the top of your priorities this year. I'll explain why in a moment. So let's put this into context as to what are we facing and experiencing at the moment in the employment environment. Well, we know that the landscape has really undergone significant shifts, in particular since 2021 and COVID, and more importantly, some of the supply chain issues and inflationary issues that we've been experiencing more recently. Some of the things that directly impact on employment. Number one, we continue to experience what I'll call the COVID hangover. And this is the lag effect from the disruption we all experienced to the workplace during COVID. And how that's playing out, I'm definitely seeing this a lot now, is that we are seeing still remaining and increasing in some cases indicators of stress, fatigue, even burnout in the workplace. And that is definitely impacting on productivity and engagement.
Yeah, it's definitely, there's been something with that, Warren. COVID's definitely changed a lot, just whatever the experience is. We even find in some roles, like, people want the job, but they want the pay, but they just don't want to do the work. It's definitely an underlying fatigue, or it's just a really interesting dynamic at the moment.
I think it's a good choice of words there, Lauren. It's underlying, it is there, not necessarily visible, but you don't have to dig too far to see the symptoms. And some of the other more practical issues are, people are catching up on holidays and leave that maybe they skipped during that time. So definitely having an impact. The hybrid puzzle, I'm calling it a puzzle because it's one there that is to be solved. Working from home, flexible work, that one, Jeannie, is definitely out of the bottle now. It is not going back in. And, we're seeing all sorts of experiments around what's going to be a final solution to how people accommodate working from home and working from the office. We're definitely seeing a shift back to the office, but I can definitely say with great certainty that it's not going to be 100%. There's going to be a leveling out at some point with a combination of working from the office and working from home. You certainly witness that on the roads at the moment. Mondays and Fridays are a lot quieter. So people are tending to work from home where they can. It doesn't apply to everyone. It's more knowledge-based roles, management-based roles, those based working in the information industries, because the more hands-on roles, such as healthcare, transport, logistics, any trades, they can't work from home, right? So this doesn't apply to everyone, but nevertheless, it's getting a lot of airplay, and it does definitely feature in what people are looking for in their current roles and new roles. The unemployment rate in Australia continues to remain low. And hey, that is such good news. I mean, everyone who wants to work has a job, but it also means that is placing pressure on in a couple of areas. One is it's hard to find the people you want and you're looking for. And secondly, it is putting upward pressure on salaries and wages. Some interesting data, because I continue to follow the stats that come out on the recruitment market in particular. And I did note that yesterday's financial pages, there was a post from Seek there. Now, Seek runs the largest job board in Australia. They were downgrading profit advice for the second half of the year. Reason being is that they were seeing a decline in the number of jobs advertised and only a slight increase in the number of applicants coming on board. Now, they make their money out of job ad postings. So what they're seeing is potentially a cooling off in the market insofar as people advertising for new jobs. So potentially we might see an improvement in the employment landscape as far as employers goes, but I would say don't hold your breath. I think all the factors that we're seeing now about the challenges of finding the right people are still going to continue, and it will be a while before the balance swings back in favour of the employer. I think it's still an employee's market right now. Skills shortage, definitely still an issue. It's hard to find those specialist skills, that people are few and far between. Of course, they have lots of bargaining power. And the last one, look, I just have to mention it because this is such a raft of legislative changes coming through since the end of last year and including now and beyond. This current government is certainly very focused on changing the landscape in workplaces and introducing new policies and legislation that are going to create, I've said burden because it really is for small, medium businesses. There's a lot more administrative paperwork that goes behind compliance. And at the end of the day, it increases the cost of employment. So that's what's playing out in the background. But can I also add this? I mean, you could say, well, this, it's almost impossible, isn't it? Why bother employing people? But having said that, I have great faith and confidence in the small to medium businesses because, we are very innovative. It takes a lot to sideline us. And what I see in times like this are people continue to innovate and find smart ways of working their way through some of the challenges. And that was ratified by the most recent survey of small to medium business confidence that I read that said small to medium businesses on the whole still have a positive outlook for the year. I think there's an anticipation that we might have peaked in terms of inflation, that interest rates again may start to come down this year. When, we don't know. And as well as that, as I said, there's a general positive, qualified, but positive outlook on the part of businesses. So that is promising. So very quick question here, and we can use the QA on your screen, but what are some of the employment challenges that you are facing in your business or you're observing others facing as well? If you can think of something, pop it in Q&A and we'll bring it up.
I'd be surprised if the flexible working isn't one of the ones that's probably having a bit of a challenge for most people, Warren. It's certainly something that I see a lot in recruiting. It's just becoming an expectation now. And we've had a situation where we had one candidate for a job that she was due to return to after mat leave, was basically expecting her to come back full time in the office. And she's like, I just can't do it. So, yeah.
Yeah, so some comments there around flexible work, meeting the expectations of younger workers, Gen Z, who seem to want a lot but don't want to give much. That is a challenge. They certainly have different expectations about what work means. There's some commentary there around difficulty finding some of the more advanced skill sets that people are looking for. AI is certainly having an impact on people who are wanting to get digital skills as well. There's another one, finding the right employees that fit the organisation and the culture. Yeah. That's such a good point, isn't it? Because, as we spend a lot of time in our work helping our clients find the right people, getting that cultural fit can be one of the biggest challenges, and knowing how to look for it as well. All right, thank you. So some good feedback there. Appreciate your input. So a bit of a shopping list here of why workers leave. We do conduct exit surveys for some of our clients, and so we do get some insight into some of the reasons why employees choose to depart. There are a number of reasons there, and I won't list them all, but you can see demanding workloads. As I said, some of this COVID hangover is that people just don't have the capacity that they once had to be able to take that extra load.
I think too, Warren. Oh, sorry.
Go ahead.
I was just going to say, because in finding when we're screening people for jobs in the recruitment market too, we're always asking, what is it that they're looking for, or why is it that they're leaving? And so, I think obviously pay is something that is getting a bit tighter pressure. But one of the big reasons is there's usually, what are the relationships that they've got going on at work, and how, do they have a good manager, or a manager that's creating, problems for them? It doesn't even have to be a manager. So just those 2 points at the top there, or near the top, around communication and relationship, that's a common theme that I see, where they're like, I just don't want to work with this guy anymore. I've given it a year. I chatted to one lady the other day. She's like, I've really given this a year, but I just can't see it's budging, and I can't see what else I can do to change it. So I'm looking for a new role.
Yes.
Which is a shame.
Well, it is. Look, sometimes people leave and you say, well, that was probably inevitable, or, we don't mind that they're going because it wasn't really working out anyway. But we're the people who you really expected to stay, who you like having a team. They're the ones that really hit hard and are disappointing. So, look, there's lots of reasons. And look, what I would say is that those reasons have probably been around for a long time. But when you have a market where job opportunities are many and plentiful, and employers are out there actively seeking and contacting people for new work, then of course people's satisfaction, or dissatisfaction, can I say it, is heightened, and they may well go with the grass is greener. So, and it's not to say that all these things exist in your workplace, that none of them may, but they're just things to be conscious of and aware of what people are looking for these days. It's no longer just about money. Better pay is certainly there, but there's a lot of other factors that go towards retaining and engaging your good people. So research has also just ratified again everything that we're seeing here, that this most recent survey says that of those small to medium businesses that were surveyed on this, that 55% ranked as number one issue this year still remains recruiting and retaining skilled staff. So 55% said that was their number one issue. Interestingly, 58% said that their number one issue was costs and decreasing margins. So you can obviously see that the economic environment is also impacting on people's challenges this year. We all know that. So the purpose of today is not just to create an awareness and also perhaps just clarify and confirm some of the things that you may be experiencing, but also then talk about, well, what are the solutions to this? What are some of the strategies that you can adopt to actually put your business in the best position to retain the best people and also to attract the best people as well? And, it falls back to, how do you engage your people, ignite and sustain them through an HR strategy? And I talk about strategy here as being of all the things you are doing, do you have a process that enables you to deliver predictable and sustainable outcome, particularly as far as retention goes? Because we quite often in businesses will have strategies behind our marketing, strategies behind our finance, strategies behind our client engagement. But we don't have, quite often HR takes a back seat here. Now, if we're looking at the problem areas like retention, definitely this is something for you to focus on and ask yourself, do I actually have a retention strategy? I might have retention as an issue or even a goal, but do I actually have a proper strategy in place? We want to talk to you about what should appear in that strategy. So the 5 engagement strategies to maximize retention in 2024 and beyond. Let's hear what they are. Let's get started. I'm going to hand over to you, Lauren.
Yeah, I might kick off with something that I think is a critical one, and also a quick win in some ways. Recognition and reward is what we're talking about. Now, this doesn't have to cost anything, and that's not what we're talking about, because I think sometimes when employers hear, I've got a, recognition and reward, it's gift vouchers or dinners out or, spending money, but that's not always possible for all small businesses. So we've had a look at, well, what are some of the things where people want to know that they're the employees, they want to know that they're contributing to something bigger. And again, I hear this all the time, and when I'm asking people during screenings for roles, it's like, what are you looking for in your new role? And they're just wanting to be a part of something that's meaningful. So a couple of the suggestions here that we've got in terms of this strategy: catching people doing the right thing, and that can just be a very small gesture. I think sometimes if you're in a pressurized work environment, or if you as a leader or manager are under a bit of stress, it can be more easy to focus on the things that didn't go well. What do we need to fix, rather than sort of slowing down a little bit and just making sure that we catch people doing the right thing and just giving them a little bit of a pat on the back for that. Acknowledging personal milestones. Certainly a really big one is acknowledging anniversaries. I was in a situation once where I had a client who did not manage their personal milestones very well, and one of their key staff racked over 10 years with the company and it went unnoticed. And so I ended up having that person have a chat to me saying how disappointed and upset and sad they were that the company hadn't noticed it. So those sorts of things even could be personal milestones, that they've got a special anniversary or something, just bringing in the human touch. We also talk about recognizing work achievements. There's lots of different ways that can be done, whether it's in a meeting, for example, you might call out celebrations and wins. I remember when I was working in my family business, we used to have a bell, and when a big order had come in, the bell would ring. And it was just a good way of fostering that kind of, recognition that the team had done a great job. And then lastly, they're understanding different personalities. So DISC is something that most of you probably that know Howardco and know us know that we're really passionate about DISC, but understanding those different personalities and the needs that come with that. So you certainly don't want to have somebody who prefers privacy to be celebrated in front of an entire organization of people for the work that they do. It's just not how that works. That's not recognition for them. That's awkwardness, whereas certain other personalities just love that kind of thing. So also just tapping into those individual needs, Warren. So
thanks, Lauren. Can I just probably support that last comment there? Look, just a basic fundamental human need to want to feel valued and appreciated. And everyone looks for that in different ways. So that's one thing, understand the different ways of people. But fundamentally, we all look for that. Am I being valued? Am I being appreciated? Thanks very much, Lauren. Well, the second strategy is to listen to your people. And this is an important reminder, because for any other part of your business, you need to gather data and information about how that business was performing so that you can do better. And it's no different with your people. We need to gather data and information. So how do you listen to your people? Well, the first thing you can do is realize that what your people want to tell you is what they need in order to stay. So if retention is our strategy, then we need to find out what is it that's going to keep people engaged with you. So some ideas: conduct retention interviews. Now, this might sound unusual, but the whole idea of a retention interview is to identify those people in your business or organization who you want to keep. They're really important to you for now and for the future. And then have that frank and open conversation to find out from them what are some of the important needs that they have that may have been met or not met. currently and in the future, what sort of things do they want to do and how do they see themselves developing? That gives you really valuable information about what you can do to actually retain them in the business. So retention interviews is really important, as are exit interviews as well. Now, we conduct exit interviews regularly for our clients, and you do gather a wealth of information. Now, unfortunately, it's after the event, but what you do learn is some really important feedback that can be used in future recruitment and future retention campaigns. So exit interview is very, very valuable. Probably a good idea to get someone who's objective, maybe an external party like us, to do that for you, because quite often people are prepared to open up a bit more than they would be if they were talking to their direct manager, who may have been the reason why they left, for example. Satisfaction and engagement surveys is the next one. Now, we also do this, and why we do that is to have a formal annual collection of data and information and feedback from people who are working for you along a whole range of topics. What the systems and procedures are adequately supporting them. We ask questions about training, we ask questions about levels of engagement, future intentions, and so on. But if you do that on a regular basis, you've got a benchmark, and then you can measure changes over time as you implement different strategies. And finally, the employment interviews are a great opportunity for you to ask the sort of questions that might give you an indicator about what that person's future intentions are. So we do this a lot in the interviews we conduct. A typical example is, tell us a little bit about how this job would fit into your future plans. Now, when you ask that question, they're likely to reveal a little bit about what their ambitions are going forward. Another question you can ask is, so what sort of skills or experience do you hope to gain if you were to accept this job? And again, you're getting valuable insight and information about their needs going forward. And if you are feeling bold enough, you might like to ask, well, how long do you intend to stay with us? Like, what's your forward plans in terms of how long you expect to be in this role or in the business? What do you see your future looking like? And believe it or not, people will open up and be quite frank about where they're at. Sometimes they might say, well, look, I really want to get this experience on my CV. I expect to be here for 2 or 3 years to do that. If there are future growth opportunities, I'd definitely be happy to stay. Other people might say, you know what, this is my last post. This is where I want to be. I want to stay here till I retire. People have different reasons and different views of their future. If you ask the right questions during the interview, you can gather really, really valuable information that can help you in planning how to keep good people going forward. That's listening to people, because they will tell you what they need in order to stay. But I want to tell you a good story about a manager who I once worked for. We used to call him the doctor, because at 3:00 every afternoon, he'd leave his desk and he'd do the rounds of the floor and get out and talk to people. And what was amazing was just the valuable information that he came back with. And he often tells really interesting stories about what he'd learned in his rounds of visiting and chatting with people in an informal way. So that's a really important lesson to remind us of. We can all get very, very tied to our screens, our phones, our texts, our emails, but actually taking the opportunity to break that cycle and I go and engage either one-to-one in person if you can, or if not, if you've got remote workers, to actually take an opportunity to get on the phone, get on a Teams meeting, and just have an informal catch up and book that in and make sure you do it regularly. That way you're going to get some information that you might not have got otherwise in more formal settings.
Yeah, great. So I'll cover off with the regular feedback, which I think is also another really critical part. And one of those things that seems to crop up a fair bit in terms of getting feedback is how are you actually conducting your performance reviews? And I think a lot of businesses are familiar with that. They used to do annual reviews, and what we're finding more and more as a retention strategy is actually really looking at having more regular check-ins and feedback, structured performance reviews. That doesn't necessarily mean doing what you used to do annually, 2 times or 4 times a year. So I've got a lot of clients that have moved to doing quarterly meetings, but they become just more check-ins and smaller meetings more regularly, creating a great forum for discussion and an opportunity to give feedback, especially if there's corrective actions that need to take place. Probably, on both sides, getting the feedback back as well. It's better to know that sooner rather than later, rather than waiting for a year or even then missing the boat and having somebody leave. Also really important in terms of getting feedback is making time for informal check-ins. similar to what Warren was just talking about there with the doctor. Going around and having those informal chats with people is another great way of being able to get that feedback and understanding what's actually really happening at the coalface, for want of a better term, and making those informal check-ins part of your routine and part of your operation, so that you don't necessarily, it's not something that you have to think about. It just becomes part of your everyday. One of the things that we also find is helping a lot at the moment, especially with a little bit more like diverse work locations, working from home, that type of flexibility, is having real-time feedback forums, say, for example, through the use of Microsoft Teams, through the use of Google Meet. I've got clients that use Slack as a communication tool, and it's just a way of being able to find, how do we give fast feedback around certain things and sort of keep the engagement and keep the conversations flowing, whether it's even about like work in progress, but just those opportunities to keep some speed, and that really helps to keep people on track. Lastly there, how did you do? Follow up on the feedback, not just listen to it. One of the risks is taking all of that feedback on board and then not acting on anything critical. Now, I was talking about this yesterday with the team, that there's no reason why you have to take that feedback on and do everything yourself, because I know everybody's time poor. But if people come to you with suggestions or thoughts of ways that can be improved, if they've got it within their capacity, within their job to do, pass it back and say, look, come back to me with some ideas on how you think that we could implement that. What would it look like? I even suggested to somebody in a more senior role, put together a business case. If this is going to require a spend, show me what the cost is, show me what's going to be involved, show me the benefit, and then that will help me make a more informed decision. But we've got to get that information first and really try to drill it out of people, and then they feel heard as well, which ties in with the previous strategy around listening. Yeah, over to you, Warren.
Thank you. So number 4, training and development. Look, it would be no surprise that this is important to people, to everyone, insofar as what they're expecting from a job these days. We hear it time and time again when we're conducting interviews because we all ask the question, what are you looking for in your next role or in a new role? And invariably, they'll come back to us and ask, well, what are the opportunities for training and development? How can I grow my career? How can I develop new skills? So people do want to develop their careers and grow their skills, and they're attracted to employers who actually offer that. And I'm not talking, massive investments here necessarily in expensive external programs. It's really being very targeted and very focused about what the needs are, both of the individual and the business. And I really do emphasize that. That's really important for you to understand if you're running a business. What are some of the core skill sets that we're going to need for the future? And then align those with what people are looking for as well, and come up with a strategy around, well, how do we start developing those skills internally as well as accessing external? Sometimes we need to get specialists as well. Look for opportunities to deliver that training and workshops, both internally and externally. People respond very, very well, even if it's a lunch and learn session where you ask everyone to jump on their screen, attend a half an hour briefing, perhaps from a specialist manager or someone who's got a good skill background in a particular area, to share knowledge around the business. And that way you can actually start meeting those needs without necessarily investing a lot of time or money necessarily in training workshops and so on. And the emphasis these days is on continuous learning. In the old days, you'd go to university or finish high school and you go, well, that's it, I'm ready to work and I don't ever have to do that again. Well, it is just not the case. And people are very hungry to learn more. And particularly as now so much learning is around technology, and with technology, that's forever changing. We can't say we know it all. It's a continual opportunity to be able to learn and develop and grow in those areas. And it's part and parcel of why people go to work. The other thing I'd also suggest here, from what we know about how managers are now observed and how they can fill the gap in helping others learn, and that's through coaching and mentoring. Now, that in itself is a skill set. It's something we teach people and it's something we practice as well. But coaching and mentoring is certainly important, especially for younger employees.
Yeah, last but certainly not least, we've got strategy number 5, which is all about induction and onboarding. And in what we're really talking about here, this is something that we do pretty much all the time with our recruitment. We certainly encourage it, is to make sure that we provide a structured onboarding experience to really help new people coming into the business to feel settled and understand their role and get them up to speed as quick as possible. A useful employee is somebody who knows what they're doing. It says there, people will decide whether to stay or leave in the first 90 days on the job. So it's a really, really critical thing when you're looking at onboarding new people as to what you're actually doing. So having a structured onboarding experience, really important. And the number of times that I've sent incumbent candidates their like onboarding plan, and they've been like overwhelmed, like, wow, that's really awesome that I've got a roadmap of all the things that I'm going to learn once I get settled into the job. It's a really, really positive initial experience. They don't have to be rock solid and that's it once you've set the plan. I mean, every single plan I think I've done has changed, but it gives an idea and a bit of a roadmap. And what that does is then help to clearly communicate expectations along the way as well. And that's a two-way street, because I think, as we've sort of talked about, there's a lot more expectation that employees are coming into employers with. So, not to say that, the tail's wagging the dog, but you definitely want to make sure that where possible, and you've committed to expectations, that you're being able to fulfill them and that they've got an opportunity to talk about how that's going for them. An important one here about integrating new employees into the culture, whether that could be just as simple as having a little welcome lunch. We got one client, they like to just a handful of people that will take that new person out to lunch. They don't get the whole company involved because that can be a bit intimidating, but it just gives people a chance to really get to know, like, socially. And what are some of the other things if you've got a social club or other activities that are sort of outside of operational work? What can you do to integrate your new employees sooner into your company culture? Lastly, make sure that you organise check-ins and reviews. We encourage monthly reviews for the first 3 months, but in between time, we also encourage our clients to do, certainly for the first week, daily check-ins, and then progressively doing weekly check-ins and things like that. So really important to make sure that you're really setting up your new employee for a successful onboarding experience.
Well said,
Thank
Lauren.
you,
And
Christina.
it reminded me of that old saying that you only get one chance to make a first impression. And these initial days, particularly starting in a new role, are just so vital. And it is easily managed, but it does take dedication to that, to providing a structured approach to it. Something which we advocate for very strongly, and we know it works. So the message here is, don't just hope for retention. Don't just hope that your good employees will choose to stay because they like you, but plan for it. Make sure that you do develop a strategy. And from today, we've talked about 5 key areas. And I just want to summarize on the next slide by talking about generally what our approach is to making things happen in organizations and to help create that sustainable long-term workforce that everyone desires. Our approach is based on what we call our strategic action model. And if you look at that model, you can see that red zone down the right-hand side. That's when you feel like you're spinning your wheels, like there's a lot of activity going on, but not much structure behind it. So you really don't know whether it's going to work or not. Where we come in and work with you is to move you into that green zone, where you get full alignment between your strategy and the actions people take every day. And why do we do that? Because that's where you can get more sustainable, more predictable, more measurable results. So in relation to retention, it's about gathering employee insights, understanding what some of those motivational drivers are for the people. Why do they stay? Why do they leave? But as well as that, we really place a lot of attention on the employer's role as their satisfaction as well. So as a business owner, there are a lot of things that are being asked of you, but what is it you want from your business as well? Because that factors in how you develop your strategy. And from that, we identify the key strategic drivers and then build a plan that's going to deliver those managed, predictable results. That's our approach to all of the work we do with our clients. And you can use that same model to apply to retention. Let's look at the 5 key retention strategies here. Number 1, recognition and reward. Number 2, listen to your people. Number 3, regular feedback. Number 4, training and development. Number 5, induction and onboarding. We've talked about a lot of different tactics that support each of those strategies there. Obviously, you don't do them all. You don't need to do them all. And there may be others that you are doing as well. But the key message here is, if you don't have a strategy behind it, take some time time to put it together now. And we're going to help you to do that as well. And I'll show you why. I'll tell you how in a moment. Yeah, so, and we'll pause right now just to take some questions, but following that, I'll explain something that we're going to send out next week to you. Lauren.
We've got a couple of questions here, Warren. So if we dive straight in, one of the first ones here we've got is it the hybrid working that's contributing to poor relationships?
Gosh, that is such a good question. And it's from Lee. Thank you, Lee. Look, I think hybrid working has definitely changed working relationships, if I can put it that way, for a start. Now, most of us on this call will have experienced hybrid working one way or another, or remote working. I think what it is suggesting to me is that not necessarily contributed to poor relationships, but it's certainly created a new challenge for the way in which we manage relationships in our teams. And it means we have to consciously make time to connect. So if everyone's in the one workspace, the one office, it's easy just to see what's going on and to tap into what I'll call the vibe around you, or have those water cooler conversations that you talk about. But when people are not visible, when they're working from home or working remotely, someone has to make the effort to make the connection. And you can maintain good working relationships if you do that. And I certainly, our own team who all work remotely now, we make special time. Whenever we start a team meeting, we devote the first 15 minutes to a check-in. And that could be anything about what did you do at the weekend? How was that function you went to? How's the cat? How's the dog? But we make time for that. Whereas in an office environment, we don't always do that. We might do it informally as we're walking the floor. So I think it does contribute to a change in the way we manage relationships. If it's not managed well, I think, Lee, that's your point, it can have a negative impact on relationships. Lauren, would you like to comment?
The word that's really standing out for me is intentional. And, when you were all in an office, there was the incidental, standing over the kettle while the kettle was boiling, or just the water cooler, as you talked about there, Warren. I've got one client that they opted to go almost exclusively remote following COVID, from a period of time when they were almost completely all in the office. And they actually probably have a stronger culture now because they've put intentional practices around making sure that they check in, making sure that they find ways to collaborate. Even that's a big job. They're designers. So being able to actually collaborate, what platforms and softwares can they use? They've just had to be very intentional around it. So I think that's the key message there. Great question. Thank you. And certainly one to continue to ponder as well. I've got another question here for us, Warren, which is about how do you balance the expectations of employees when you're trying to retain them, but maybe their expectations are a bit unrealistic. And so you're trying to find some middle ground there.
That's a really good one, Lauren. And I think this also comes up in recruitment phase as well. This question of, what is an individual looking for and what can we provide? Look, there's got to be a reality check here also, and an open and honest conversation, not so much to dampen enthusiasm, but more so to just ensure that you can deliver on those expectations as well. So how do you do that? My approach is to try and delve a bit deeper into the why, okay, and try and understand why is that particular request being made. Now, pick a simple one. Someone might want more money, right? So they're looking for more money than you're currently offering. Now, we experience that in recruitment, but you'll also have that in the workplace. Well, people will want more money for different reasons. And it's better for you to explore the reasons than to simply say no in the first instance, because you might learn something. And I remember a story that I was told by one employer who asked that question when one of his staff came up and said, look, I really need more money. Can you pay me more? And he said, look, it's not that easy, but I'm happy to try and consider a solution to your need. Can you tell me why you need more money at this point? And they explained that their car had broken down and it was irreparable, basically. It was going to cost too much. So they needed to get another car. He said, well, this is interesting because I actually have a second car sitting in my garage that belonged to my son. He's gone overseas. He's just told us he's not coming back and we can get rid of the car. He said, so I'm prepared to give you this car, okay, in lieu of a pay rise. And they solved the problem by talking about it. So
Yeah, wow.
my suggestion would be delve a bit deeper. Maybe there's a way you can find a solution that might not be exactly what they're asking for, but you might be able to meet their need at the same.
Solve the problem. Yeah. Interesting.
Thank you for that question. And keep going.
Oh, we've got another question in here from Lee. I think we've started a thought bubble for him. Is there data to evidence the better the employee experience, the better the customer experience?
Yeah, that again, really insightful question there. Look, there is. I don't have it to hand, Lee, but I'm certainly just happy to find it and pull it out for you. There's some great research that has been done by the Gallup organization. They're probably the largest research agency in the world about the impact of the employee experience, not only on engagement, but also on company performance, profitability, productivity, as well as customer satisfaction. So I'll dig that up for you, and Lee, and send it out to you. But definitely it is quantifiable and measurable, and there is definitely evidence to say that the better the employee experience, the better the customer experience. And we all know it, don't we? I mean, if you go in and have a really good experience in a store, I think about local Baker's Delight bread shop, right? The young people serving there are fantastic. They've been well trained, and customers love going there. And then the reverse. If you get poor service, you usually think, well, that's probably because that's the way they're being managed. All right. Well,
we're
I
at
think we've
time.
come to all the questions and time. So let's wrap up, and thank you very much, those people who submitted questions there. If you have any others, feel free to email them through to us. There will be a recording of this webinar sent to you. And if I could have the last slide, we shall wrap up and let everyone go. But a big thank you from Lauren, Bettina, and myself for coming and joining us today.
Yeah, thank you.
To trust you've taken value from what we've delivered. In appreciation, we will be sending out to you a strategy checklist. We'll get that out to you early next week. It's a summary of everything we've covered today, but it also gives you an opportunity to go through and rate your own business and identify where some of those gaps might be, so that you can come up with a more complete retention strategy than you currently have. So again, thank you very much, everyone. I hope you've enjoyed it. Look out for our next webinar, which will be in the next month. Thanks, Lauren. Thanks, Bettina.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone.